University of Iceland, School of Education, and especially in the Department of Education and Diversity. And I will coordinate the symposium today and the discussion, what we have after each of the presentation. So we have 4 presentations here today, and actually I want to tell you a little bit about the purpose behind these presentations. As you know, Iceland has one of the highest rates of immigration participation in the labor market among the OECD nations, and research has shown that we have a bit of lower rates of social integration. And we are now actually creating a new policy on adult education in Iceland. And the idea is, of course, to ensure better social inclusion of immigrants and other marginalized groups among Icelanders. We have actually the presentations are presenting some of the results of reports that have been working out for the minister who is in charge of adult education in Iceland. And it used to be within the Ministry of Education, but now it's part of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labour Market. So that is also a huge change since 1 year ago, no, 2 years ago. And so we have a lot of new things going on in this field. So first of all, I would like to introduce Laura Hoffmann, who is a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Iceland, and Hermína Gunnþórsdóttir, who is a professor at the University of Akureyri. They are going to have the first presentation. Very welcome. Já, slá þessu niður. En ekki bara... Jú, það er bara hann. Já. Já, það er bara...
Þú getur bara gert strikið, Lára þetta.
Minnsta strikið.
Yeah. So, thank you, Berglind, for this introduction, and I think we are very happy to be part of this session and discuss and present our research to all of you. So, what we will be talking about here are 2 different separate studies. One is based on quantitative research, and the other one is more recent, is based on qualitative research. And as Berglind already mentioned, both of those studies have been part of the minister's aims to fund research on immigrants in Iceland, and especially regarding adult education and immigrants' experiences learning Icelandic in Iceland. So the quantitative studies that we will talk about here, or I will take this part, is based on an online survey conducted amongst immigrants in Iceland in 2018, and another survey conducted in 2022, so a follow-up survey. The qualitative research will be introduced by Hermína in more detail. So, we wanted to know a little bit more about what immigrants think about learning Icelandic, and when we ask directly, this is from the study in 2018, whether people expect immigrants to learn Icelandic, the results are striking. So we see that 50%, when you ask Icelanders, 50% of Icelanders say that immigrants are expected to learn Icelandic. And the numbers are quite similar for immigrants, actually, so they agree with this statement. They're a little lower, but we see that a general tendency is when you move to Iceland, you are supposed to learn Icelandic. At least this is what people respond when you ask them directly in this survey. But when we talk about and see the results, do people speak Icelandic? We find that, yeah, there is a significant portion of the immigrant population who reports who do not speak Icelandic well. So you see the numbers here, and these two groups you see divided between, this would be the survey of 2018 and 2020. You see there's a significant group that says my Icelandic is rather bad or very bad, according to their own perception, of course. So it's not actual language proficiency, it's self-reported language proficiency. Number of courses attended, we see that, yeah, there is a portion of immigrants who doesn't attend or reports not have attended any Icelandic courses, and most say that they have attended about 1 to 3 courses. And then this is interesting when we ask about the impact of Icelandic courses. So I go to a course, what happens? How does it change my life? We see that most agree with the statement, Icelandic courses have significantly improved my language skills. Yes, so there is a significant group that 37% says yes, 24% says yes. But if we ask about if Icelandic courses also had a societal impact or an impact on immigrants' inclusion into the labor market, we get a little bit of a different result. So we see that fewer immigrants, or these groups here say that Icelandic courses have not improved their social connections with Icelanders and also not their job opportunities. So I think this is interesting to consider if we think about language as a means of inclusion in terms of social context or in the labor market. Experiencing using Icelandic, you go out in the world and you speak it. You see that immigrants have many experience issues when trying to speak Icelandic that they get responded to in English. This seems to be especially prevalent by immigrants from North America. And the group that reports not being hired due to low levels of Icelandic is from Asia. So this is something, of course, that could be researched in more detail in further studies. And another aspect I found interesting is that when you look at a different region, in Reykjanes, there's the highest portion of immigrants who reports that they haven't been hired due to low levels of Icelandic, or have also reported that 27% of immigrants in Reykjanes say that someone has made fun of their accent when they were speaking Icelandic. And here you see, if you look at Icelandic language proficiency and English proficiency, there is a significant proportion of the community, of the immigrant community, that does not speak Icelandic nor English. And this is a group I think that we haven't been researching or looked at so much. We often tend to assume that immigrants speak English. That means that we provide information to them in English, but it's actually a significant group that doesn't speak English. And this actually was something that we found in both in the quantitative study but also in our qualitative study, which Hermína will now talk about.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to tell you briefly about the main findings from a qualitative study that we conducted for Fræðslumiðstöð atvinnulífsins, and I never remember their English version of the title, so maybe you can help me about that. But what we did, I cannot use the arrows.
Oh.
Is it?
Oh.
Yeah. So we interviewed, the aim was to focus on young people, immigrants aged 18 to 35 in focus groups, and so we contacted the lifelong learning centers across the country to here is it, in 5 different regions, and they kind of helped us to reach out to this group of young people, and we conducted these focus groups, interviews in these 5 different parts. and kind of, you see, it was from 4 to 7 in each group, and it was a bit of challenge to get them into this setting to have an interview, but it was amazing that we managed, and with help from the Símenntunarmiðstöðvar. And we used interchangeably English and Icelandic. Yeah. And so you see the division between men and women, and we think we have only 2 gender in this group. We tried to get other gender, but that was not available. So the criteria was that they had been here at least, was it 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. And yes, so in the group they had been from 1.5 years up to 20 years, and many of them immigrated as children here. So this is just a very rough picture of their employment status, and primarily working was because they were sometimes both working, studying. So many of them were mainly primarily working. And oh, sorry about this. So what we see when we looked at, if we just looked at the education, the theme of education in this in the interviews, that was very common, and it's not new for us in Iceland. That many of them, actually most of them, were working outside their area of education. Many of them very highly educated, but were not working in their disciplines, so to say. And they mentioned that they, because they were working, they were interested to take courses alongside their work, but as we all know, it's challenging and difficult, and somehow the conditions were mostly very challenging. And we asked them about the opportunities to take courses, for example, both in their studies, original studies or others. And they also mentioned that there was a huge lack of courses in English. So they would be interested to take some further education, but also in English, because the Icelandic level was, the level of Icelandic was a hindrance to keep on. But if they could take the step forward in English, that would help them to go further on in Icelandic. And yes, this is a common theme that we see all over, I think, in recent studies and in Iceland, that their prior education was not valid, and that was mainly the reason they were not working in their conventional discipline. For example, like, we had 2 doctors in this group, highly educated, but they were working, one was working on car rental services.
With cars, yeah.
So with this lack of health care staff people in Iceland. So this is a common theme that we see all over. And also these language aspects, when we looked at the educational theme, as I mentioned, the lack of opportunities to study in English, and they had really tried to take these Icelandic courses, but they were actually stuck in this system of courses. They were taking the same courses multiple times, and there were no kind of logical section of courses on the levels. And because they came with very little English skills, they actually learned English before Icelandic. And they were actually very good in English,
yes.
Even been here only 2 years without any English prior to this day. Let me see, what was it more?